Alright guys, so this is a disclaimer that I'm going to be putting in front of the next couple videos. What I'm going to be doing over the next, this weekend, today, and probably tomorrow, is I'm going to be opening up the Rb25 Got a lot of parts that I've been collecting for this operation. I have the water pump, head gasket, valve cover gasket over here. I have the N1 oil pump, ARP studs, HKS timing belt over here. All of this is what I'm going to be installing when I open up the motor. So it's going to be one big install session, but I want to give each piece its own video. So I'll probably be reusing like the teardown footage and stuff like that up until the point where I replace whatever part the video is after. And that's more so for the people that's like following the channel, just so that, you know, if you see repetition within the next couple videos, that's what it is. If this is the first video you've seen it, cool. If this is another one or the second or third one, just feel free to skip until the actual part that you need, because you got a lot of work to do. Water pump is going to be right here, timing belt is under the cover, valve cover gaskets up here, head gasket of course in the middle. So just for starters, there's that, and then the head studs and all that stuff. I am going to install the injectors, but I'm not really going to make a video on this because it's literally just adding some grease to it and sticking it in there, so that's not video worthy for me. Those will be installed in the process of me doing all this, but I won't make a video on that. So with that being said, let's get started with this teardown. And then for the cover, I'm going to be taking off both pieces, so all this stuff is going to have to come off as well. But for starters, we're going to start with the top. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, it's 4 on this side, 5 up here. And keep in mind, cam angle sensor, please mark where it currently is so that you can put it back in the same place when you take it off, because this is gonna really affect how your engine performs when you put it back together if it's not aligned properly. So there's that. And that's pretty much how to get the top parts off. As for these timing components, I'm gonna do that second, and then I'll show you guys how to go about getting all these belts off and stuff like that, so that we can get to the bottom side in order to do the water pump and the oil pump and all that good stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and knock this off and then resume. All right, so for the front, I took a marker and I marked kind of roughly where every bolt is, similar to this one, for the cam angle sensor, in case I have to take it off. Not 100% sure if you need to, but you may need to, so I marked it anyway. And all these bolts are 10 millimeters. I already broke them loose for the most part. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 10s as well, I believe. Yeah. So those are 10 millimeters as well. That's all you're gonna need to take off all of this. I'm gonna go ahead and disassemble this real quick and go from there. So I did take the cam angle sensor out. Be very careful with that. Those are, if you don't already know, they're extremely delicate and very important for your engine to run right. But after I took that off, this is pretty much loose, as you can see. So this is probably just a matter of time until it's off. So of course you gotta kind of like finesse it a little bit. Something maybe, nope, never mind, it just slides up. So yep, after you get all that done, timing cover's off, and there's your timing belt. Mine looks like it's in pretty decent condition, honestly. I'm changing it anyway, but yeah, it's always nice to inspect this stuff before you continue further. But like I said, I'm changing mine anyway. So that is where you get access to your timing belt. Now, in order to change the belt, there's some tensioners and stuff that's on the bottom side that you're gonna have to get out and out and untensioned, so that you can, you know, loosen this up so that you can pull it off and everything. But this is how you get to this point. Now I gotta go ahead and get this ready because this is gonna be powder coated as well. All right, so now the next steps that we have are getting these belts off, these accessory belts. So the alternator belt, power steering belt, and the AC compressor belt. And in addition to that, the harmonic balancer has to come off for the oil pump. Now this, to get this out the way, I'm pretty sure it's just these 10 mils that I broke loose, and that pops off this fan housing or fan mount shroud cooling thing, whatever. This is only the OEM clutch fan. This is where it mounts to, if you have one. This is pretty much the way to get that off. It's just these bolts. They're 10 millimeters. I used the socket. I already broke them loose. Pop those off, and then this thing should come off, give you a little more access. But I'm gonna do that off camera when I have more than one hand. And what I figured out for that is you need to untension it through the alternator. You see this bracket has a slidey thing that brings it in. Once that brings it in, tension on this belt goes off, and you can easily just unloop it. So what I did is I went ahead and marked with the same marker. I don't know, it kind of looks like a shadow, but it's right there. I'll drop an arrow where it was tensioned before I got started, because when you put it back together, you're gonna have to retension it correctly. You don't want to have too much tension, and you don't want to have too little tension on belts. So that's why I went ahead and marked it, and we are good to go now. This is the adjustment bolt, 12 millimeter socket. Just go ahead and loosen that up. Okay, so you're good to go on that. And then there is another one on the back here. Same thing, 12 millimeter. And it should be, I don't know if I can break this loose with one hand at this angle, 14 mil. So what I'm gonna do is just pop this off, pop that one on, and try to loosen that. Looks like I'm gonna need two hands again. All right, that one was really on there. I had to get the bigger ratchet to get that off, or to get that loose. But that's loose now. All right, I did figure it out. So yeah, you do loosen this one because that's the pivot bolt thing. I tightened this one back a little bit just to make it snug, because that's holding it into this bracket, but it's really this bolt. You just loosen this one as much as you need to, and then you can just simply pop it in like that. And as you can see, that alleviates all the tension, and that's how you can get the belt off. So it's pretty much just that simple. You can take this bolt all the way out, because the farther out it's going to be, the more it's going to allow you to push it in. I don't want to take it out. I just want to have it at the point where I can just pop off the belts like so. And there you go. For the power steering, as far as getting this belt untensioned, there is 3 bolts. Well, actually there's probably 2, but I loosened 3. So there's the main one that's going to be in here. Let's see if I can get it. That is a 14 millimeter bolt. You're going to crack that one loose just like you cracked this one loose on the alternator. You want to crack this one loose. This is a 12 millimeter. That is on the tensioner bracket. And then the bolt that is on here, I don't know if you can see it or not. Let me get out there. This is also a 12 millimeter. You want to back that off. And once you do all that, you'll be able to simply just push this one in, just like the alternator, and then boom, that's how you get that belt off. And that is the first one. So I don't know, you probably want to do that one first, second do the AC, and then third do the alternator. It doesn't fully matter, but you know, it's up to you. So now we're gonna do the AC one. I'm gonna have to figure this one out. So let's get this fully off. Get it off of this breaker bar. And one thing that I would say is try to label what goes where as you're doing this, so that when you put things back together, you're not having too many problems. This belt is not really worn down too much. It is like kind of rusty, but it's like mostly surface rust, and it's in pretty good condition, so it's good. They do make accessory belts for the RB engine that I do plan on replacing once I go forged. I'm gonna replace pretty much everything that I haven't touched already. So let's go ahead and do this AC, and then we'll be good to go. One side note, top dead center, outside of what I gave earlier or in the other videos, these are the timing marks that'll tell you top dead center as well. So make sure to line those up before you take this timing belt off. These belts don't matter as far as timing, but this does. And it also, goes with the cams and stuff. Like I said, if that clip is in this video. So, yeah, like I said, let me figure this one out. I'm pretty sure the tensioner is somewhere with this because I see the slot for it, but I'll know in a second. AC belt is really easy. There's nothing with the AC. You just crack this bolt loose. This is a 14, and then there's a bolt underneath here that is a 12, and that is, let's see if I can get it for you. This one right here, that is the adjustment one for the tensioner. So you just pop that loose, adjust this upwards, and then this one just comes on out. And that's pretty much how you get all the belts off, all the accessory belts off. They're pretty simple. Something that you're gonna have to do if you want to take the head off of the motor. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and organize, all these belts, and from that point on we'll continue with this teardown. So for this one, it was those 4 bolts that were holding this in on the little fan thing, the 410. I mean, yeah, 410. There it is. The 4 10mm nuts that were holding that in. This just was being a prick to come off. But once you undo those, I had to pry it off in a couple areas and get it all, same old screwdriver and hammer type of deal. Then the actual pulley, this was left on here. Pretty sure this just, that just slides off. I'm gonna put that over here with it. And now you have the water pump pulley ready to go. So I think I said it in the last clip, but the next thing that has to come off is this crank bolt here. So what you got to do, if you're in the car, just find something to basically lock onto this and lock onto this breaker bar or whatever it is you're using, and then turn the car over and it should pop loose. But since I'm not in the car and this is not a running engine, I have to find something that's going to hold the engine in place and then pop this bolt off. So it's going to be more difficult. Another thing about those timing marks, the first mark on this harmonic balancer lines up with this timing mark on the cover. So there's that as well. But that is needed to get this harmonic balancer off, this cover off, and get access to the oil pump underneath, as well as the timing belt tensioners. So let's go ahead and see if we can figure this out. I'll show you what setup I come up with as far as getting this harmonic balancer off, and then we'll go from there. All right, so as far as getting this thing off, I didn't find a way to wedge it without like moving the whole engine assembly when I was trying to use the breaker bar. So impact, that's what you're gonna need. Unless you have a way that you can keep the engine from rotating from the back side, you're gonna need an impact to get this thing off. what was I saying? Outside of keeping the engine from rotating on the backside, and if it's in the car, you can kind of take a ratchet, stick it on here, and then fasten it to the loop on here, and then turn the car over. That'll pop it loose as well. But this pretty much got the job done. So we are good to go there. I'm gonna try to rotate this back to top dead center before popping this harmonic balancer off. So there's that, and then once you get this off, then it's the cover. But make sure you put it back to top dead center beforehand, because like I said, once you do that, once you interrupt all this, your timing is just out of whack, and it's just gonna be, you're gonna have to retime everything. So try to avoid that.
Oh, it's happening. Nice.
Yeah, that's how you get it.
We can just put an impact on this bitch.
I prefer slow and steady. I don't want to damage the threads because I don't have another harmonic balancer.
Smart man. Oh, back it down.
That's how you get that off right there. Harmonic balancer.
Feel how heavy it is.
$803.
Damn, this shit thick. All right, I'm gonna put that here for now. But always make sure to remember to have your engine at top dead center before you take that off. So lastly, you just got to remove this cover. 1, 2, 3 bolts for the cover, and that gives you access to the oil pump bolts. So I'm gonna take this off and then we'll continue. All right, so you just got some gunk on it. That has some gunk on it. Pop this damn thing. Get your ass. There we go. And now you got access to everything for the timing belt and the oil pump. You got the 2 tensioners right here. Mine's actually don't looking like they're in a bad condition at all.
There's a little surface rust.
Surface rust, but overall, I mean, my timing belt's good. I'm just replacing it anyway with the HKS. But yeah, most people will replace this. If yours is bad and super rusted, do replace these. But yeah, mine is looking good. So we'll go ahead and get that. But now you got access to the water pump bolts, the oil pump bolts, and the timing belt stuff too. All this has to come off in order to get the head off anyway. Well, the timing belt does in order to get the head off anyway. So that's the step that we're at. What you want to do is loosen these tensioners, and that'll release the tension on here. You'll be able to pull the belt off. 14mm bolt for the idler, or I mean not the idler, the tensioner. Pop that loose. That'll move this way and release this tension. So I'm gonna do that. Take this timing belt off. Can't stress to you enough how important it is to make sure this is at top dead center before you do all of this. If you don't take anything from this video, top dead center. That is all. On to the next clip. All right, so as you can see, I've been doing a lot of work on here. If you follow the channel, you know I've been doing a lot of work on here. Between this clip and the last clip, we got painted the stuff, new oil pump, in one oil pump, water pump, head gasket's been upgraded, bunch of different things. So now we're finally back to doing the timing belt. Now I just watched a little bit of the last clip to remember where I was at. As far as this, once you have the pump and stuff good, it's pretty simple. These slide back on in this order, because this is the exact order that I took it off. There we go. And then this last one, boom. And that's how you do that. Now you can take this off for now, just to make it a little easier to slip the timing belt underneath that. The second thing is the tensioners. They gotta go back on. So this is something that you can do if you want to be smart and label everything so that you can know what is what and what goes where and all this stuff. So I got the tensioners right here. This one is all set up exactly how I had it when I took it off. So makes it easy for when it's time to put it back on. Boom. And it goes just like that. Pretty much. Thread that sucker in, and then you're good. On this one, I'm gonna see about the torque specs for these, because I'm pretty sure there isn't a torque spec for this one. It might be a torque spec for this one though. One thing to make sure that the bolts are not warped, because if you have a bolt, if this bolt is bent, then this is going to be bent, and if it's bent up, it'll cause the belt to walk off. If it's bent in, it'll cause the belt to walk in, and then you'll have problems with that. I don't know who's horny if you hear that in the background, but yeah. So make sure that you get that checked out as well. Some people replace them with ARP bolts. It's entirely your choice, entirely up to you at least. I made sure mine was still straight before I made the decision on putting them back on the vehicle. And then this is for this one. There you go. Pretty much just like that. And I did the same thing with the bolts. These 3 bolts are for the lower cover. And then this, in this order, it's got some washers on there, is the bolt that was on the tensioner here. So you could just slide that right back on. Boom. And there you go. Now remember, I mentioned mine wasn't bad. It has just like a little bit of surface rust here, but for the most part it's straight. So I'm gonna double check this. If it is true, then I'm gonna edit it so that the video, you know, shows the right information. But as far as I know, there is no torque spec for this one. You leave it snug, put the belt on, and once the belt is on and everything, turn the engine 2 rotations, and then you're straight. From what I've been told, because I've done a lot of research on this, I've been very scared to do the timing belt because it's very common for people to over tighten these belts. But what I've heard is that with the belt, to make sure that it's tensioned correctly, you should be able to do a half turn of bending while it's like fully connected to the vehicle or connected to the engine. So that's that. Yeah, I guess we can route that now. That stuff is still being painted. May or may not make that video today, but it probably won't be posted today. So the next thing is this belt. Look at this piece of Japanese art that is HKS. I love me some Japanese car parts. Hopefully everybody else does, or I would question why you're here. But unfortunately, I gotta take it out the box. But that is definitely nice. Now, another thing that I know about these HKS belts is if you do over tighten them, they tend to make a whining noise, kind of similar to a supercharger, but I don't know if it's going to be as loud as a supercharger. So that's another way to tell that you over tighten your belt. I'm also gonna check once I open this up to see if it has timing marks on the belt as well. But I'm gonna open this up off camera because I can't do it with one hand, and then we'll go further. Okay, so I've been messing with this for a little bit. I figured it out pretty much. This one, so you put this one on first. Well, you put both of them on. This, torque this down. I just torqued it down to 36 foot-pounds, and that one's good. This, the trick with this is you see that right there, there's a nut and then there's a spring. So you want to rest the spring on that nut. Make sure it's resting on there. And then there's an Allen key that you can put in here. So this one is a T27 for that. I think it's also a 5mm. But yeah, once you put that Allen key in there, you can go ahead and just pull this over, untensions it, and that's how you can line the belt up. Now for the actual HKS belt, it does have timing lines. So there's one right there, and the other one's right there. So it's pretty good. Pretty good. You know, I expected them to have it. Line that up. Just because it is HKS, and this is kind of like what they do. This is almost impossible to do with one hand, but I'm gonna do it and then come back to the recording. Oh my god. Yeah, it took a little bit to get that on there. I'm not gonna lie. Even when you have it like fully, you know, run through, it took a little bit to get that on there. This is still like loose. I haven't tightened this at all yet. But after I loosened that up, it just did its own thing. This is what I'm talking about when I say the half turn thing. I say you should be able to put a half turn of it on there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, this one's torqued down. Make sure that your marks match the lines. Marks match the lines. This one's slightly off, but this is the variable gear. So I'm not 100%, I'm not too worried about it being off by just that little bit, because this one is the one that changes based on the input to that sensor. But this one does not, so this one is dead on. And yeah, that's pretty much that. And then you just pop this thing on there like so, and you're pretty much good to go. Let's see. Yep, that looks good on that side. Push the side back a little bit because I don't want it walking off the edge. I'd say that's about fine. Yeah, I think that's about fine as far as the belt. And these will keep it, this should keep it from walking off, and you're good. And then, like I said, it's turn the engine 2 times, 2 rotations, and it'll torque itself down if you leave this snug. So I'm gonna get a socket on here, snug it up, because this is only finger snug. Yeah, and then we'll go about rotating the engine once the harmonic balancer is back on. But that is the timing belt. Of course, after you do that, you want to put the lower timing cover back on and the upper timing cover back on, and all the other accessories. So you would do the lower timing cover next, then the harmonic balancer, followed by the crankshaft bolt for the bottom, and then all the accessory belts depending on your setup. If you got power steering, water pump, you put the pulley back on, alternator, tighten all that stuff. You basically just do what I did in the beginning of the video in the reverse order, and then once you have everything connected, just use the, actually honestly you could just put the harmonic balancer on, crank bolt, and then you could use that to turn the engine twice. But I'm not going to turn it until everything's good. So yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it for this one as far as the timing belt. And I think that might be the last of this series, honestly. Yeah, that actually is the last of this series. So motor's closed back up, and we're gonna be good to go. Now I'm just waiting on the clutch so I can put the turbo, waiting on the clutch so I can mount the transmission to the motor set, and then after that it's going in the car. It's time to start connecting stuff and prepare for first start. So we're almost there. But yeah, I'm gonna stop talking. Like, comment, subscribe, follow the build. Till next time.